Imagine a billionaire CEO stepping into her own luxury car dealership, only to face rejection, not due to lack of funds, but simply because of her skin color. What she does next not only shocks everyone involved, but also sends ripples of change throughout the luxury automotive industry. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more impactful stories like this. Naomi Caldwell, a respected CEO who built her luxury car empire from the ground up, receives a troubling letter from David Williams, a loyal customer. He describes being racially discriminated against at her Beverly Hills showroom. Shocked and troubled by the news, Naomi discreetly travels undercover to the showroom to investigate firsthand. The letter was from David Williams, a successful entrepreneur and longtime admirer of Caldwell Motors. As Naomi read his words, a heavy feeling settled in her chest. David described his recent visit to the Beverly Hills showroom, where he experienced unexpected suspicion and subtle dismissal by the sales staff. Despite being financially qualified and eager to purchase one of Caldwell Motors' prestigious vehicles, he was steered away from high-end models simply because of his race. Meanwhile, a similarly dressed white customer received immediate and thorough attention, including test drives and detailed explanations of the same luxury cars. Naomi felt a mixture of disbelief, disappointment, and anger. Her company's mission had always been clear and uncompromising. Luxury and prestige should be accessible to anyone who had earned it, irrespective of their race, background, or status. The idea that racial discrimination could exist within the very brand she had painstakingly built felt like a personal betrayal. This wasn't merely a professional setback. It was a moral failure that struck deeply at her core beliefs and values. She stood up and paced around her spacious office, glancing out over the New York skyline. Memories flashed through her mind of the countless obstacles she had overcome as a woman of color breaking into the elite circles of the luxury automotive industry, an industry traditionally dominated by established, predominantly white, legacy brands. She had fought tirelessly, not only to establish her credibility, but to ensure Caldwell Motors would be synonymous with fairness, integrity, and equal opportunity. Determined to uncover the truth, Naomi immediately contacted her trusted assistant, Daniel, instructing him to discreetly arrange her undercover trip to Los Angeles. She emphasized absolute secrecy, choosing not to involve corporate channels or any official announcements. Naomi knew that if the showroom staff recognized her as their CEO, they would certainly put on their best behavior, making it impossible to see the reality David had described. This wasn't about appearances or maintaining her image. It was about authenticity and the genuine need to understand and address the depth of the issue without any filters or pretense. Early the following morning, Naomi boarded a flight bound for Los Angeles. As the aircraft ascended above New York City, she reflected quietly on her journey, from humble beginnings and countless battles for respect and recognition to becoming one of the few women of color leading a billion-dollar luxury automotive brand. The possibility of discovering systematic prejudice in her own company deeply unsettled her, yet strengthened her resolve even further. Landing in Los Angeles, Naomi deliberately rented an unremarkable black SUV, dressing casually in jeans, a simple blouse, and sneakers. She wore no visible jewelry or accessories that would reveal her wealth or influence. Naomi needed to witness the raw truth and fully understand the extent of the problem she faced. Arriving in Beverly Hills, she parked near her showroom and took a moment to observe the sleek, glass-fronted building from a distance. The dealership radiated exclusivity, luxury vehicles gleaming behind expansive windows as if displayed in a museum. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Naomi pushed open the heavy glass doors and stepped inside, fully prepared to confront whatever harsh realities awaited her within her own walls. The interior of the Beverly Hills showroom was meticulously polished, radiating an aura of sophistication and exclusivity. Luxurious cars were impeccably displayed under strategic lighting, each vehicle positioned as if it were an irreplaceable masterpiece. Sales associates glided gracefully between customers, their sharp suits and professional smiles masking the subtle biases Naomi was there to expose. Approaching the reception desk, Naomi encountered a receptionist whose warm welcome faded quickly upon noticing Naomi's casual attire. Maintaining her composure, Naomi politely requested to view the Bugatti Chiron Supersport. The receptionist's hesitation was fleeting but noticeable, an unspoken judgment passing in her eyes before she hurried away to consult the sales team. Within moments, Richard Langford, the showroom manager known for his authority and rigid standards, approached Naomi with calculated steps, exuding confidence and subtle arrogance. "Good afternoon," Richard began smoothly, his voice carrying a polite yet scrutinizing tone. "You're interested in the Chiron Supersport, I understand?" His eyes performed a swift, deliberate assessment of Naomi's casual appearance, a silent judgment clearly etched on his features. Naomi met his gaze unflinchingly, responding calmly, yet firmly. "That's correct. I'm very interested in viewing it." Richard raised an eyebrow slightly, his skepticism becoming more pronounced. "Typically, viewings for such exclusive models require prior appointments," he remarked coolly. "We reserve these appointments for serious clientele." Naomi felt a spark of irritation ignite within her, though she kept her voice even. "And how exactly do you decide who qualifies as serious clientele?" she challenged him directly. Richard hesitated for a fraction of a second, caught off guard by her directness, before regaining composure. His voice lowered, carrying a sharper edge. "We look carefully at financial capability, purchasing history, and, well, we know who fits the profile." Before Naomi could respond, the showroom doors swung open, and a casually dressed white couple entered. Instantly, another salesperson greeted them warmly, enthusiastically guiding them toward the exact same Bugatti Naomi had requested. Naomi narrowed her eyes, locking them onto Richard with intensity. "It seems your criteria depends significantly on who walks through these doors," she remarked pointedly, her voice now ice-cold, carrying unmistakable accusation. Richard's jaw tightened visibly, eyes narrowing briefly as his facade of professionalism momentarily cracked. He leaned slightly forward, lowering his voice further, almost to a whisper laced with condescension. "Ms. Caldwell, I assure you, our standards are strictly professional. We simply prefer to dedicate time to genuine buyers." Naomi stared at him for a tense moment, unspoken anger and challenge simmering beneath her composed exterior. The tension between them hung heavy, almost palpable. She finally replied with a cool steadiness that masked an inner storm. "Professional standards don't discriminate, Mr. Langford. Perhaps it's your standards that need reviewing." Richard's expression hardened further, his forced smile disappearing completely. Without another word, he abruptly turned and walked away, leaving Naomi standing in the center of her own showroom. Instead of pressing further, Naomi stepped back to quietly observe. Over the next hour, she saw patterns that solidified her concerns. White customers, even those in casual clothing, received immediate and enthusiastic attention, offered champagne, detailed tours, and exclusive viewing opportunities. Customers of color, despite presenting themselves equally well, were subtly redirected or received dismissive responses. Naomi felt deeply disturbed, realizing that these practices were not anomalies. They were deliberate and routine. The stark reality was painful and impossible to ignore. Naomi's heart ached, knowing that her vision of inclusivity had been compromised so blatantly in one of her most prestigious locations. Her initial shock gradually transformed into clarity and resolve. Naomi now understood the depth of the issue. This wasn't isolated behavior by a few individuals. It was an entrenched culture of bias, operating beneath the polished surface of luxury. With the evidence clear before her, Naomi knew it was time to act decisively. As she quietly exited the showroom, her determination strengthened. She was now committed not just to exposing the truth, but to completely transforming the values underpinning her company. Naomi realized that simply witnessing the discrimination wasn't enough. She needed tangible evidence and internal documentation to make a compelling case. Observing quietly from a distance, Naomi noticed Maria Torres, a young sales associate whose discomfort was visibly apparent each time a customer of color was subtly redirected or ignored. Maria's internal struggle was evident in her hesitant glances and uneasy expressions. Naomi decided to approach Maria cautiously, waiting until Maria took her short break later that afternoon. Standing discreetly outside, Naomi waited until Maria stepped away from the showroom floor. Naomi approached gently, introducing herself simply as someone concerned by what she had seen, careful not to reveal her status too quickly. At first, Maria hesitated, her eyes darting nervously around the surroundings, clearly anxious about potential repercussions. "I know this is hard," Naomi assured softly, her voice filled with genuine empathy. "But something needs to change. I noticed your discomfort in there. Tell me what's happening." Maria's shoulders slumped slightly, a silent acknowledgement of her internal struggle. Finally, she spoke in a hushed voice. "We're instructed, though not explicitly, to prioritize certain customers based on how they look and who they seem to be. They never say it outright, but it's obvious. I feel awful every time I have to follow that directive. But what choice do I have? I can't risk losing my job." Naomi paused, absorbing Maria's words carefully. She saw genuine conflict in the young woman's eyes. This wasn't someone who enjoyed enforcing discrimination, but rather someone who had become trapped within an unfair system. "Maria," Naomi said calmly, placing a reassuring hand lightly on the young woman's shoulder, "I understand you're in a difficult position, but silence perpetuates this kind of injustice. I promise, if you decide to speak out, I will protect your identity. You won't face this alone." Maria stared at Naomi, clearly weighing her options, before finally nodding slowly. Later that evening, Naomi received a discreet message from Maria asking to meet privately. When they met at a quiet cafe nearby, Maria handed Naomi a folder filled with internal emails, memos, and training materials detailing Richard Langford's directives, subtly encouraging discrimination. The documents painted a stark and disturbing picture of systemic bias embedded deeply in showroom practices. Naomi carefully reviewed each document, her heart heavy with the knowledge that her company, built on principles of fairness and meritocracy, had betrayed those very values. But alongside her disappointment grew an unshakable resolve. She was determined to act decisively, not just to correct internal failings, but to send a powerful message to the entire industry. That night, Naomi reached out to her assistant back in New York, speaking with calm determination. "Daniel, it's time to go public. Arrange everything immediately. We cannot let this injustice continue." Naomi knew this moment represented more than just fixing one company's wrongdoing. It was a critical step toward broader, meaningful change. Maria's bravery was the spark Naomi needed to ignite real transformation. Back in New York, Naomi convened an urgent meeting with her closest advisors and senior executives. The atmosphere in the boardroom was tense and somber, each face reflecting deep concern as Naomi presented the shocking evidence obtained from Maria Torres. Naomi meticulously displayed the internal documents, emails, and even video footage from her undercover investigation, clearly exposing the systemic discrimination embedded within the Beverly Hills showroom. As the evidence unfolded, the room grew increasingly silent. Shocked murmurs were replaced by a palpable sense of urgency. Naomi spoke passionately yet firmly, emphasizing that Caldwell Motors was at a crossroads. This wasn't merely about a public relations issue, but about the very integrity and core values of the company. "We built this brand on excellence and inclusivity," Naomi stated clearly, her voice steady yet emotional. "The practices we've uncovered directly contradict our principles. We cannot allow this to continue unaddressed." There was unanimous agreement among her advisors. Immediate action was required to not only address the internal issue, but also to publicly demonstrate the company's unwavering commitment to fairness and equality. The following morning, Naomi stepped confidently before an audience of eager journalists, their cameras flashing relentlessly. Her expression was composed, but inside she felt the immense weight of responsibility. Naomi began her address calmly, openly acknowledging the troubling discovery and taking full accountability for the discriminatory practices that had surfaced within her company. Today, I stand before you not just as a CEO, but as someone deeply disappointed by betrayal of our foundational values, she declared clearly. As Naomi revealed the footage and documents publicly for the first time, gasps filled the room, underscoring the severity and shock of the revelations. Naomi then announced decisive actions: immediate suspension of Richard Langford and other implicated management personnel, a comprehensive internal review, mandatory anti-discrimination training across every level of the company, and an independent oversight committee to ensure lasting reform. During the press conference, Naomi openly expressed genuine remorse, directly apologizing to David Williams and other affected customers. Her sincere approach resonated deeply with the audience, turning public outrage into momentum for change. Questions flew rapidly, journalists demanding further details, but Naomi remained composed and transparent, carefully explaining each step the company planned to take. As Naomi left the podium, her determination was evident. She knew the journey ahead would be challenging, yet she also understood this moment had become an important catalyst, not just for Caldwell Motors, but for the entire luxury automotive industry. Her willingness to openly confront harsh realities had set a new precedent, reinforcing that true prestige comes from ethical leadership and genuine respect for all customers, regardless of background. Naomi's press conference sent shockwaves through both Caldwell Motors and the broader luxury automotive sector. The evidence she presented was irrefutable, capturing the attention of major media outlets, influential figures, and the public. The narrative rapidly shifted from a simple customer service issue to a national discussion about racial bias in elite industries. Richard Langford initially believed he could control the narrative, dismissing Naomi's revelations as exaggerated and manipulative. He hastily orchestrated counterattacks, planting rumors suggesting Naomi's motives were driven by personal ambition rather than genuine concern. However, his attempts to undermine Naomi quickly backfired. Former employees began stepping forward, emboldened by Naomi's courage, sharing their experiences under Richard's discriminatory management practices. Each revelation added fuel to the fire, destroying Richard's carefully crafted image. Facing increasing isolation, Richard found even his closest allies within Caldwell Motors distancing themselves, fearing the escalating public backlash. Investors started expressing deep concern, and prominent customers publicly withdrew their support, declaring boycotts until meaningful reforms were made. The board, pressured by mounting criticism, convened an emergency meeting to address the crisis. At this critical juncture, Richard attempted one final defense, accusing Naomi of exploiting the situation for personal gain. However, his desperate counterattacks fell flat, overshadowed by the overwhelming evidence against him. The board had no choice but to act decisively. In an emergency session, Richard was formally removed from his position and escorted out of the building, humiliated and disgraced. The public reaction was swift and decisive. Formerly loyal clients openly criticized Richard, reinforcing Naomi's message about the need for genuine change. The scandal's fallout was severe for Richard. His professional reputation was irreparably damaged. Once a respected figure, he became a symbol of the dangers of unchecked prejudice and arrogance in business. Meanwhile, Naomi capitalized on the momentum generated by the scandal, initiating broad, systemic reforms across Caldwell Motors. She announced sweeping measures to ensure fairness, transparency, and accountability. While Richard's downfall was swift and unforgiving, Naomi's courageous stand sparked a broader, industry-wide reevaluation of practices and values. Naomi's decisive actions at Caldwell Motors didn't merely impact her own company. They sent a powerful message across the entire luxury automotive industry. Her willingness to publicly confront racial bias ignited widespread introspection among competitors, forcing them to address their own hidden discriminatory practices. Naomi became an influential advocate, proactively engaging other industry leaders in crucial discussions about fairness, equity, and inclusion. In the immediate aftermath of Naomi's public revelations, luxury dealerships nationwide faced unprecedented scrutiny. Customers of color began sharing their personal experiences online and through media interviews, exposing biases that had previously remained unspoken or overlooked. Public outrage demanded accountability, driving other luxury brands into hurried self-examinations and policy revisions. Naomi leveraged this momentum by organizing industry forums, roundtable discussions, and workshops aimed at addressing systemic discrimination head-on. These gatherings were attended by prominent executives who, for the first time, openly discussed diversity and fairness as integral components of their brands. Under Naomi's guidance, a collective commitment began to form, challenging old practices and setting new ethical standards. Maria Torres, the brave whistleblower, was elevated within Caldwell Motors to lead compliance and training initiatives. Her transformation from an anxious sales associate to a confident advocate symbolized the broader industry's potential for positive change. Maria's story inspired others, reinforcing the message that standing up against injustice was not only brave, but necessary for real progress. As these initiatives took root, Caldwell Motors experienced a significant rebound in consumer trust and brand reputation. Sales improved noticeably, highlighting the commercial benefits of genuine commitment to ethical practices. Naomi's actions demonstrated conclusively that confronting harsh realities openly and transparently was not only the morally correct choice, but also strategically beneficial. Competitors previously resistant to change now found themselves compelled to follow Caldwell Motors' example. Policies against discrimination were revised, inclusive training programs implemented, and oversight committees established industry-wide. Naomi's courage had set a powerful precedent, redefining the very concept of prestige within the luxury automotive sector. Naomi remained vigilant, emphasizing continuously that the work toward equity and fairness was ongoing. She recognized that sustainable change required consistent effort, transparency, and accountability. The legacy of Naomi Caldwell became a powerful case study on leadership, integrity, and courage, proving that genuine prestige is built not on exclusivity, but on fairness and respect for all. Meaningful message. Naomi Caldwell's courage didn't just save her company. It sparked a movement challenging the entire luxury auto industry to confront and eliminate discrimination. This story emphasizes that integrity and fairness are vital in business, reminding us that true success is inclusive and respects every individual equally. Personal reflection. Personally, this story resonates deeply, highlighting how one person's bravery can break down systemic barriers. Naomi's decisive action teaches us that standing up for what's right, despite risks, is the essence of true leadership. Call to action. If you found this story inspiring and valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Story Precious. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest videos. Together, we can champion fairness, equality, and meaningful change.